welcome to Moving Panels One Shot. Let's have a short little nerdy conversation here. And joining me today is the creator and host of the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. Please welcome back Mr. Tim Williams.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me, Laramie.
It's always a pleasure to have you. It's always great to kind of talk with you to get that really kind of movie background as you do on your show.
I try.
But Tim and I are going to discuss today whether or not let's call it the Defenders universe, the Marvel universe from Netflix, should be introduced into the MCU. Now, I want to make it clear that it was established that these universes are the same. There wasn't a separate universe. That was made clear. There's a lot of stuff in the shows that indicate that. Marvel's chief creative officer, Joe Quesada, agreed with it. Jeff Loeb, who was the head of Marvel Television at that time, he backed it up and said it was all connected. So we know that they're the same universe. Our question today that Tim and I are going to discuss is, now that the shows have been canceled, and I can't believe it's been 2 years since the shows have been canceled, should those characters, and even more so those actors, be introduced into the movies now that we're getting into phase 4 of the cinematic universe?
Well, I don't know if there's a definitive yes or no answer, because it's all going to be based on where the story, Kevin Feige, and he was really wanting to move the story forward. Now we're, past the Avengers saga and the Tony Stark, Iron Man, storyline. But I will say I enjoyed the Marvel TV shows, the ones that I saw. I did watch all seasons of Daredevil. I watched both seasons. I think it was only 2 seasons of Luke Cage. I watched somewhat grudgingly the
Iron Fist.
Iron Fist, yeah. I did watch the first season of Jessica Jones. I did not make it through the second season. And I did watch The Defenders, and I did not watch The Punisher, even though I know he was in that. So I can't say I'm 100% all in story-wise on those. But the interesting thing is, their styles were so different, even though they were trying to tell some of the same stories. So I think the characters that you could translate, of course, Daredevil is going to be the number one character I think that could easily move into the movies. And especially in the Spider-Man universe, because being so close to Queens, Brooklyn, that New York area, Hell's Kitchen are all kind of close together. So I can see that working. I would even say Luke Cage could probably play a little bit in there, but I don't see them becoming major characters like we've seen, like Captain America or Black Widow, or, I would put them more on the Hawkeye level, where they're a part of the story, but they're not driving or they're not the main characters driving the story. Yeah,
and that's a good thing to kind of lead into this conversation. So, and you bring up Daredevil. So it was about a month ago, probably 2 months ago by the time this episode will air, that Daredevil has officially returned back to Disney, Marvel, whatever you want to say.
Right.
And there are reports, you mentioned Spider-Man, there are reports that he will appear in the Spider-Man 3 movie, whatever.
Everybody else coming to that movie.
Yeah. It's kind of like Captain America Civil War. It's only a Captain America movie by name.
Right, exactly.
So, same thing with the Spider-Man. And I think Charlie Cox is even supposed to still be playing Daredevil.
Yeah, that's the rumor. We don't know how official that is yet. But yeah, I've seen a couple of reports of that as well, which, he had such a... I'm a fan of his in that role. I mean, I can't think of another Daredevil. Definitely, let's not bring back Ben Affleck to play Daredevil. Please, God, no. So
I'm a fan of that movie. So
okay. Yeah. Anyway, well, different podcast. We'll come back to that. So, but I think Charlie Cox is great. I think, and there's a strong fan base that wants to see his story continue. That were very upset about the show being canceled. So, once again, side character, maybe a cameo, not maybe a little bit more than a cameo, maybe a glorified cameo, but I don't see it being a driving force of the movie. Even with Luke Cage, and once again, it all depends on where the story's going. Because right now, they're looking at so much stuff that's either in space or different dimensions, or they're really taking the Avengers or the MCU outside of New York, outside of LA, all off of Earth. It seems to be the Earth that we know. So I don't see him being any of those characters being primary in those stories.
Well, but at the same time, that is true for the cinematic universe. But Disney has also just announced all of these television shows for Disney Plus.
Right.
And so you're looking at a She-Hulk, you're looking at a Hawkeye, you're looking at the Falcon and Winter Soldier. And so you're still going to have these Earth-based, possibly even New York-based characters.
Right.
And so even though we call it the MCU for this thinking of the movies, we got to remember now that our world has changed so that these television shows are now pretty much the movie. As much as Kevin Feige wanted to separate the shows from the MCU as much as possible. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was also in the same world, but completely separate.
Right.
All of these Netflix shows in the same world, completely separate. But now it feels like they're bringing them back together.
Yeah, but I'm once again, I don't have any inside information. I have nothing. This is all speculation. But are they giving them their TV shows so that they don't have to be such big parts of the movies going forward, so that the movies can then tell these new stories with new characters and new adventures? So we haven't seen what WandaVision is going to do yet to know how, even though we know that it's supposed to tie into the next Doctor Strange movie, but we don't know how tight those ties are going to be. It's all a big mystery. We're all speculating anyway.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they've even announced that Mark Ruffalo is supposed to appear in the She-Hulk show. And, of course, Jeremy Renner's in Hawkeye. So you've got the big cinematic characters appearing in these television shows. So you really... Here's the thing. You talk about... I'm in total agreement with you that we're not going to get a Daredevil movie, more than likely. We're not going to get definitely not going to get an Iron Fist movie. But they do have in the works a movie based off of the character, kind of lesser known character, Shang-Chi.
Okay, right.
And the Shang-Chi character is a martial arts character. And so I could definitely see them, as much as I really don't like the portrayal of Iron Fist, he's the weakest of the ones from the Netflix universe. That is a way to bring him in. And if you're going to bring Iron Fist in, I mean, Luke Cage can follow right in behind, because together in the comic books, they're, partners pretty much, heroes for hire. So being able to bring them in could easily be done. Now, Jessica Jones maybe teams up with She-Hulk, because She-Hulk's an attorney and Jessica Jones is a private investigator. So maybe that's where you bring Jessica Jones in.
Yeah. I think what would be interesting, I'll say this. What would be cool, at least for me, and this is hard to do because I don't think the Defenders, the 8 or 9 episode season that they had, didn't fully establish them as the Defenders. I mean, it pulled them all together to have a common goal or a common enemy to defeat. If we would have gotten maybe another season or two to kind of let them be we are a team kind of established team, then in one of the MCU movies, you have this, hey, let's call in, I heard about this group down in Hell's Kitchen, let's see if they can help us on this little part of, maybe not the final battle, but hey, let's see if they can help us get to, point C or point 2 of a 4-point plan or whatever. I'm it's not well formulated, but anyway.
No, I get what the idea. Yeah.
Kind of bring them in and use them all together. That way we get to see them all, give them maybe a good battle scene, let them show their gifts or their powers, what they can do, and then maybe kind of give that little seedling that maybe down the road they can come back and have a bigger role and kind of grow from there. I think that would be cool. I don't think that's what they're going to do because, like I said, Defenders wasn't well enough established in the Netflix shows. But I think it would be cool if they use them in that capacity instead of just plucking one or two. Maybe use them as a team and give them some kind of a team assignment to use in the overall story of the movie.
Yeah, I can see that. So, we talked about Charlie Cox possibly continuing to play Daredevil. Do you think Mike Coulter and I forgot the names of every other one.
But do you first name?
Christian Ritter.
There it is.
Christian Ritter, and of course the rest of them. Do you think they should all return, or do you think we should get a replacement? Because a replacement's not out of the realm of possibility. They replaced Rhodey. They replaced Bruce Banner. So they can replace actors with no thought on it whatsoever.
Yeah, I would think just for with them not being major characters, I would like to see them all come back, at least for the first one. But once again, that's kind of more of a personal wish. I mean, I love Mike Coulter. I think he's fantastic. I love Charlie Cox. I think he's great. Christian Ritter and the actor that we'll never know the name of that played the Iron Fist.
Finn Jones.
Yeah, Finn. Yeah, I could take or leave them, but I mean, Christian Ritter wasn't bad. Jessica Jones was not my favorite character. I enjoyed the villain of season 1 more than I enjoyed her. Like he was more compelling to me, but that's once again a whole other podcast we can talk about later.
Well, I mean, he was Doctor Who. Who could go wrong with David Tennant?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I was about to give up on that until he was really introduced to me. I got to actually meet him. And then I was like, "Oh, I'm in now," and I finished the whole season. But I couldn't. But once again, that's kind of like my hope, my wish. That would be cool if they would do that. Whether they will or not. I don't know if Kevin Feige is listening to the podcast. If you are, thank you, sir. We appreciate you checking us out. We're big fans. Have all your albums, but all your movies on DVD at least. But it would be cool if they did.
Yeah, I'd have no problem with them replacing Finn Jones. I was not a fan of Finn Jones. Mike Coulter, I think, was a great Luke Cage. I had no problem with Christian Ritter, and I absolutely think that John Bernthal, however you pronounce his last name, I think he is Frank Castle, and there should be no one else playing the Punisher. Yeah.
Now, if anybody's going to get their own movie, he would probably get his own movie. In my opinion.
Yeah, I just worry that he falls into that same boat that Daredevil falls in of it didn't work, and I don't know if they'd be willing to try it again, especially considering for Punisher, it would be a 4th Punisher movie.
Right.
In which you haven't had the same guy play the Punisher in a single movie.
But I wouldn't see that immediate. I'd see that a much further down the line. Once again, give him a few scenes here and there, kind of build up that character maybe, and then go from there. Maybe.
Yeah, you can't wait too long though, because John Bernthal, again, I don't have no idea how to pronounce his last name. I mean, he's not a young actor.
Yeah.
So I'd be worried that you'd run into, do you have a 50-year-old Frank Castle?
Well, MCU did great with the de-aging process. They'll just de-age his face like they do.
No. I don't like it when they do that.
It's funny. I've been going back and rewatching the MCU movies, and I watched Captain Marvel, and they de-aged Samuel Jackson, which is a little bit better than they did for Agent Coulson, but some scenes are really laughable with how they tried to de-age him. He's like, you still look old to me. You don't look as young as they're trying to make you look, but they did okay. They did better with some other ones where there were shorter scenes.
Yeah, but then I think about, what was it, Avengers Endgame, when they tried to do the young Robert Downey Jr., and it was bad.
That was Civil War, wasn't it?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Again, they all start running together after a while. You forget what was from what movie.
Yeah. In Endgame, they did a young Michael Douglas. He was in the lab running, trying to make it early 80s Michael Douglas.
Yeah.
So, but once again, that was a real short scene, so they had enough time to make it where it wasn't too bad.
All right, so I think we're kind of in agreement here that we definitely want to see these characters come back. We would love to see the actors continue portraying them. Don't think that they're going to be the major big characters, stars, whatever, but we think, appearances, side characters, supporting characters.
Right.
Although we also were both in agreement that the Punisher should have his own show or his own movie.
Right.
So
now that would be interesting if Disney Plus picked up the Punisher as a show and just they're going to do like 50 shows in the next 3 years. It seems like based on what they released. But
that's the other thing where it's iffy because the Netflix shows were clearly they were R-rated.
Yeah, they were much grittier and more adult focused, or they're attracting an adult audience, not family friendly.
So I don't know if you can really bring them to Disney Plus, especially The Punisher.
Right. But if they, we're kind of getting into some industry rumors and news or whatever, but it seems like internationally Disney Plus is going to offer an adults section, which I forgot what that network is. It would be like our Hulu in the United States, where they have a stake in. So, and I know you can get Disney Plus with Hulu and ESPN as like a bundle package, but they're talking about, would they then make Hulu become like the adult quote unquote version of Disney, where they could do their Touchstone pictures and their R-rated content, especially all the movies they got from Fox that they have the rights to, but they're not going to put it on Disney Plus because it's not family friendly. So that could be an interesting way to, because once again, that's how they're going to bring Deadpool in, because they've already said Deadpool 3 will still fall under, new Marvel under Disney. So, and they're not going to I can't see them bringing Deadpool back to PG-13. I can't see Ryan Reynolds agreeing to that either.
It's interesting to see where they're going to go. I know I had you on a one-shot a month or so ago,
right,
where we talked about kind of the same thing with the Arrowverse going to the DCEU. The thing about Marvel is they're keeping everything nice and tight and trying to clean up everything so that it is all under one umbrella.
Yeah.
So it's just a really exciting thing, and to see who else they're going to bring in and how they're going to connect it all, and whether or not it's going to make sense when all is said and done.
Right. Well, I can say this: there's no better time to be alive for people like us that love superheroes and comic book stories. That now not only do you have the movies, you're about to have a lot of TV shows. And we've already had so many with CW and the DC Universe app, which has now become HBO Max. So we're about to get a lot more content, which is going to make us very, very happy.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Tim. Anything you want to say to wrap things up? Tell people about your podcast.
So you can check out the podcast. It's called 80s Flick Flashback. On every episode, myself and a guest co-host, which Mr. Laramie has been a recurring guest co-host on the show, and appreciate that. But we'll take an 80s movie. Some are great, some are not so great, but we rewatch them and then discuss, our first memories of watching them, as well as some behind-the-scenes stories as well. So we always have a lot of fun and discuss the movies together. So check us out on all the podcast platforms that are out there.
It's definitely a good listen. You should definitely check it out. So there you have it, something for you to consider. Please leave us a positive review on Apple Podcast. Like, subscribe, follow us on your favorite podcast platform, and even follow us on social media. We are at Moving Panels on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And if you have thoughts you'd like to share directly or want to suggest a topic for the show, you can email us at movingpanels@gmail.com. So I want to thank Tim again for joining me, and I look forward to another great conversation with him. And for Moving Panels, I'm Laramie Wells, and I'll see you on the other side of the page.
Hello, movie viewers and fellow movie lovers. My name is Tim Williams, and I'm the creator and host of Movie Views Presents the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. See, I love the 80s, and I have a great appreciation and nostalgic passion for the classic 80s flicks that birthed my love for movies and ultimately helped shape my childhood. On each episode, I'll discuss, with a special guest co-host of course, a different film from the 1980s. We'll share memories, favorite characters, iconic scenes, and even share some behind-the-scenes stories along the way. We'll discuss famous blockbusters like Raiders of the Lost Ark, Coming to America, Ghostbusters, Dirty Dancing, Top Gun, Die Hard, and many, many more.
as well as some other cult classics and even lesser known flicks we discovered on cable TV or the now defunct video rental stores. Remember those? No matter what 80s flick we choose to talk about, we'll always have a good time, so come and check us out. You can find the 80s Flick Flashback podcast on major podcasting platforms like Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, and more. Be sure to subscribe or follow so you don't miss a single episode. Once again, I'm Tim Williams, and I hope you'll join me for the next 80s Flick Flashback.